Okay, where are we? I don't even remember where we are. Flying by the seat of your pants. Isn't this fun? Isn't it fun not to have a plan? It's like, I don't even know where we are. I'll show up and we'll figure it out. Actually, any of my previous colleagues their jaws would be on the floor, I guarantee you, because I have never been a fly by the seat of your pants kind of a person. I had to have a plan, it had to be structured, I had to know what I was doing, and so this is kind of fun. I'm just showing up, but this is where we get to, where we get to kind of jump in the river and go where it flows. And in fact, I used to be kind of judgmental about people that didn't seem to have their act together, and but anyway, it's fun. I'm having fun. So, what are we talking about? Yeah, we're talking about parenthood and this whole thing about encouraging. So, I hope you guys had a lot of fun studying that. I will say for me, this phase of parenthood was difficult. There was this wanting to hold on, and I had a lot of expectations about what those relationships would be with my children. And so one of the things I really want to talk about in part of all of this encouragement, I want to share an experience, a profound experience that I had with the Lord. It was in 2008. It's probably been about 4 years ago. And there was one evening where the Lord pretty much had me awake. Well, not pretty much. He had me awake all night. He had me awake for about 40 hours straight. And, that whole thing about be still and know that I am God. I think it's Psalm 46:10. I should have that one memorized for sure. It was so funny because what he showed me is he had to keep me awake for that long to be able to get me to be still. In the middle of the night, I'm spending my time with the Lord, and I trust Him. I know that He's going to sustain me because He says that He will, and He gives us rest. And I know that no matter what He's asking me to do, He's going to sustain me and be my strength in that. So I'm awake, and all of a sudden I have this vision, and you remember I shared with you this kind of mental images that I wouldn't normally think of, and quite honestly, sometimes I don't even understand them, and then I have to take that vision, that image to the Lord and say, what are you trying to show me in this? But in this particular vision, I'm swimming in this huge swimming pool of water, but the water's real cloudy and murky, and it's not like dirty or yucky, but you can't see clearly in it. So it's a very cloudy, the water's very cloudy and murky, and I've got all these heavy chains wrapped around me. I mean, they're all around my neck, and they go, all between my legs, all around me. I'm laden with all these heavy chains, and I'm swimming. And the harder I try to swim, the further I sink in the pool. And then all of a sudden, the image of my vision changes, and I'm not in the swimming pool anymore. I'm outdoors. It's beautiful outside. It's bright. It's sunny. You just can sense that it's very warm. And there's this brook of water that's just flowing, and it's peaceful and it's quiet. And in this brook, there's kind of this natural bank along some rocks, and I'm just leaning there against these rocks in the water, in the brook, and the water's flowing over the rocks and just washing over me, and it's just so peaceful and so quiet and refreshing. And remember, this is all in the context. I'm going to share this, but then we're going to tie it back to this thing about the promise. So I didn't get it. I mean, I obviously could see the difference between those two images. So I'm like, okay, Lord, what does that mean? And what He started to show me is all the chains that were around me were expectations. And this is twofold, but so this revelation of the vision unfolded. But the first part that He gave me was that those are expectations that I have of other people. Those are ways that I am relying on external things, people, circumstances, my job, whatever it be, fill in the blank, to meet some need that I have. And so I am basically trying to get my needs met elsewhere, outside of him. And what he was telling me is the only way I'm going to enter this place of peacefulness is to release everyone else, release my expectations that I have placed on everyone else or on anything else to meet that need. And I understood that, but I went into this intense, mourning, grief. I'm very familiar with grief. Like I said, I've lost a son before, so I understood this feeling of grief, and I was in deep mourning. And very, very emotional with what he was asking of me and what he was showing me, because what that meant to me, the meaning that I gave to that, and we're going to talk a lot here in a little while about emotional intelligence and some other things, but one of the beautiful things that we as humans, the gift that we have, is we get to decide what things mean to us. We give things meaning. We attach meaning to things. Well, for me, in the midst of that emotion, and the reason I was having emotion is what that meant to me is that if I released my expectations, then that meant that I was not going to have my needs met. Like if nothing was going to meet my needs, then I felt like I was dying. Like all my dreams and, everything was going to die. And so, but I also knew that that wasn't true. And so I understood what I was feeling, and I understood the meaning that I was giving it, but I also knew that that wasn't true, but I just couldn't reconcile the emotions I was having around it with what I was, what the truth really was. And I also began to recognize, so I kind of saw myself get out of the pool and take all the chains off. But one of the things that I became very, very, very aware of after that is whenever I was experiencing disappointment, if there was something that was causing me to be disappointed or offended or, whatever it may be, it was, I had picked up an expectation and put it in my pocket again. I can't tell you how many times I had to empty my pockets and be like, dang it, I've got another expectation. What is that one about? Well, at least the way the Lord did this with me, and again, he does it differently with everybody. None of us are the same. But that was the first step in the process for me, was I had to release my expectations of everyone else, and I had to walk in that and learn how to lay those expectations down before he showed me the other piece of revelation in that vision. So the chains are two-part. One is the expectation I placed on everyone else was causing me to drown. But the other revelation in that is that they were expectations that I had received that others had placed on me. So the reason it felt like I was going to die and that my needs weren't going to be met was because, one of the things that I talk about is whose life are you living? Well, if I had taken on everyone else's expectations for my life, then I didn't get to live my life. I had to live the life that everyone else expected of me to live. So, which meant that the deep needs inside of me and the things that were in me had no place to go, and the things in me went unmet. And so then I projected my expectations to have those needs met onto others. So do you see how that works? Someone else puts expectations on me that I have to fulfill for them, so then I put my stuff on someone else. So I had to stop putting things on other people and sit in that heaviness and that discomfort and that disappointment before I understood the revelation of, oh my gosh, I've taken on all these other expectations and I'm living based on that. So there was just a huge season of unpacking that and getting some real freedom from expectations, both what I put on others and what I received from others. because expectations, there's a difference between expectancy, right, and expectations. So expecting our needs to be met from some external source outside of our relationship with the Lord will cause you to feel like you're drowning. It's definitely not a place of peace and rest in that brook where it's, you're just being comforted and washed over by that water. So when I think about as a parent, as a mom, with my children, and any of you that have wrestled through those teenage years, as they grow into their own people, all of a sudden you realize they're their own people. They are not the little people that you thought they were going to be, or that you maybe even wanted them to be. But that's not our role as parents, to make them into little mini-me's or into what we want. It's about helping them to be the fullness of who they are, and releasing that and rejoicing in that, whatever that looks like. But there is that kind of season where it's like, ooh, that's not what I thought they were gonna. That's not what I thought they were gonna look like. Didn't think that's the direction that their gifts and talents were gonna go. Even if you've been walking with the Lord and He's been showing you how to develop them, it still may come as a surprise how He chooses to use those gifts and talents. So just releasing that, and that's where encouragement comes in. Is even when things don't meet our expectations, is to still be that encourager and be encouraged that their gifts and talents have been developed, and they are going to be a foundational piece. The who-ness of who they are is foundational for what they will accomplish in their lives. So that was a big thing, the difference between expectations and expectancy, and how to continue to encourage and be encouraged when things don't look like what you think they're going to look like. And that totally maps to the promises that you're given, the promise you're given by God. Promises, whatever. It rarely looks like what we think it's going to look like. We have so many expectations based on our filters and our mindsets, and our, what we've experienced in our own life becomes our filters. So when the Lord speaks to us something, sometimes we project that into what we think, how we think it's going to show up in the natural. I'll give you one example. This is hilarious. At one point, the Lord had said to me, had started talking to me about a ministry. And so I start going to research 501c3s, and so for 2 weeks I'm looking into how do you do this, and I get on get on some email list to help me get information from some legal sources about setting up a 501c3, and 2 weeks of this, and my mind is like, oh my gosh, there's so much to this. This is kind of complicated. I wonder if I'm going to need to hire someone to help me figure this out. All of a sudden I hear the Lord go, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm checking into a 501c3. And He's like, when did I ever say anything about that? I was talking to you about a ministry. And see, we use our filter to us, is here in America, in our culture, ministry equals 501c3. Well, God a lot of times is talking to us at a higher language, a completely different language, and that it's not at all what He has in mind. But I know He laughs at me a lot because I instantly go to what I think of in the natural. And so we do that a lot with the promise. He gives us a promise and we think, oh, it's this. And then when that doesn't happen, and that's what we're waiting on, we can get discouraged and we can get confused. And so just releasing that and just knowing that we have to let go of our expectations. We have to allow others to be who they are, and let God meet our needs, and to release from ourselves the expectations that other people have put on us for what they think our lives are supposed to look like, and just listen to the Lord and follow. He's going to unfold His promises the way He wants to unfold them. We're not, and that's kind of encouraging. We're not going to mess them up. Even when I go to the natural and think it's going to look a certain way, I'm grateful that he stopped me. But even if I had gone down that whole road, I'm not going to mess up what the Lord is doing, and he'll use that to teach me, and it'll be a lesson just like that was. Luckily, he taught me a lesson sooner rather than later. Anyway, so expectations versus expectancy. I hope that there were some nuggets in that for you. So about releasing the promise, and this is where we get back to that point of releasing the promise back to God, releasing our expectations of what it's going to look like, how He wants it to unfold, and just realizing that if we are sitting in discouragement around not having seen it, sometimes it's because we're waiting. Sometimes maybe we've wrapped the wrong expectation around it. I think sometimes I've probably missed some things because I was expecting something to look a certain way, and it didn't. It just there are maybe some things that I've missed along the way because it didn't come in the package that I thought it was gonna come in. So okay, so where do we want to go next? Okay, next we're going to talk about what do we want to talk about next? We want to talk about parenthood from the perspective of becoming an observer. So there's this place where in early childhood we are nurturers, and we're seeking the Lord for more around what do we do to develop and encourage and nurture the development of this thing, and that in relation to a child, in relation to the promise. What do I need to develop this? And that may be things that He's going to equip you with that will allow you to carry that, walk that promise out. So there may be things in the development for nurturing. And then there's this whole area of being an encourager, continuing to encourage and learning how to release. So the next one is about observing, because you do get to this point. I have this colleague that I used to work with used to talk about how at some point parenthood becomes a spectator sport because you just become an observer. So that's where we're going next. What does that mean to be an observer? An observer of as a parent of the promise that you've been given. So go see what you can find about observing, and that's kind of an interesting piece. So I'm looking forward to visiting some more with you about that. I've enjoyed our time together again, and I look forward to spending time with you on the next step on our journey.